At the age of 29, in 1972, Joe Biden had to defeat the former US Representative J. Caleb Box in order to become the youngest US Senator from Delaware.
But did you know that Biden was the only Democrat willing to challenge Box at that time?
Did you also know that his Senate campaign had almost no money and he was given no chance of winning?
That his family members had to manage and staff the campaign, which relied on meeting voters face-to-face and hand distributing position papers.
Despite being the former US Vice President and now the current President-elect of the United States of America, what more do you know about Joe Biden? Have you ever heard of his inappropriate sexual behaviors?
Then today, we'll be talking about things you probably didn't know about Joe Biden. But before going any further, please guys, this is our very first episode on the channel, and for this same reason, we really need full support from you guys. So as you're watching this video, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell, as by doing so, it will keep us going and help us grow even faster.
So now that you are subscribed, let's go on our video.
Joseph Robinette Biden.
Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.,
mostly known as Joe Biden.
He was born on the 28th of November 1942 in a low crime rate, low cost of living in one of the smallest cities in Pennsylvania, Scranton, in the United States of America.
Joe Biden was named after his father, Joseph Robinette Biden Sr., who unfortunately passed away in 2002.
Joe is a member of the Democratic Party and served as the 47th Vice President during the Obama administration from 2009 to 2017.
He also represented Delaware in the United States Senate from 1973 up until 2009.
Although educated, Joe Biden's education is one of the stages in his life which does not receive enough applause.
Joe Biden's academic records.
Biden was a standout halfback and wide receiver on the high school football team. He also played baseball at Archmere Academy in Claymont.
Biden was not an A student, not even a B student, because at the University of Delaware in Newark, he had a C average in the majors he graduated and was ranked 506th in a class of 688 students. Wow.
Not only that, Mr. Biden was also ranked 76th in a class of 85 students in 1968 at Syracuse University College of Law.
So if he held position 76 in a class of 85, and yet he holds the position of a president, I'm wondering what position does the student who held position 1 in that class is holding today in our society?
Well, as the saying goes, sometimes the last will be the first.
Wow, that's true. But even though Biden was a poor student, he was a class president in his junior and senior years.
I don't know for you guys, but this really sounds a little bit ironic to me because Joe Biden is expected to become the oldest president ever in the history of the United States. And yet, he was a president already before I was even born.
Nonetheless, Joe Biden earned a Bachelor of Arts degrees in 1965 with a double major in history and political science and a minor in English too.
Well, we have to say that Biden's Senate activities may paint his profile with happy colors, but are those colors still vivid? Joe Biden's early Senate activities.
During his first year as the US Senator, Biden's leadership revolved on consumer protection, environmental issues, and government accountability, as he self-proclaimed in 1974 as liberal on civil rights and liberties, senior citizens' concern, and healthcare, but conservative on issues such as abortion and military conscription.
In 1984, after becoming ranking minority member of the Senate Judiciary Committee in 1981, Biden was a Democratic floor manager for the successful passage of the Comprehensive Crime Control Act.
Unfortunately, the law's tough on crime provision ended up generating a lot of controversies, making Biden unsatisfied with the law as he called his role in passing the bill a big mistake.
Joe Biden is more than just a law practitioner, but more of a law changer. And for that sake, his supporters praised him for bringing considerable changes in some of the law's poorest provisions.
And for that, he crowned his most important legislative accomplishment at that time.
This bill included the Federal Assault Weapons Ban and the Violence Against Women Act, which to Biden has been his most significant legislation.
Biden may not be against gays, but to him, homosexuality and military life cannot live in harmony.
In 1993, Biden voted for a provision that deemed homosexuality incompatible with military life. So, if you're a soldier, you are no near expected to behave as opposite to your birth-assigned gender.
Mr. Joe Biden was not just against gays serving in the armed forces. Just 3 years after, that's in 1996, he voted for a Defense of Marriage Act.
In other words, this provision deemed same-sex marriages, thereby barring individuals in such marriages from equal protection under federal law and allowing states to do the same.
Unfortunately, this rule was not welcome and hence was ruled unconstitutional in 2015.
Biden may lose his mind, but the 1988 presidential campaign is a date in Biden's calendar which will never be erased from his brain. Joe Biden's 1988 presidential campaign.
Biden has been on the run to become the president of the US since 1987.
And in the 1988 Democratic presidential nomination, he was indeed considered a strong candidate.
Why? His high profile as the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee at the upcoming Robert Bork Supreme Court nomination hearings, his moderate image and his speaking ability indeed contributed to his high competence.
If Biden would have won the election, he would have been the second youngest person elected president after John F. Kennedy.
But the contrast in today's world is that he is said to be the oldest in the whole history of the United States.
Perhaps, just like any other political campaign, Biden's campaign registered a very unprofessional and unethical behavior due to staff rivalries.
Just a month after that observation, Biden was accused of plagiarizing a speech by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, a speech by Robert F. Kennedy earlier that same year, and 2 years earlier, he had used a 1976 passage by Herbert Humphrey.
And do you know what he said in response to that?
What did he say?
Politicians often borrow from one another without giving credit.
Oops, that might have been just too bad for his candidacy, wasn't that?
But apparently, Biden was not the only politician to have ever plagiarized a speech or just a simple passage.
Don't tell me that.
One of his rivals, Jesse Jackson, had called him to point out that he, Jackson himself, had used the same material by Humphrey that Biden had also used before.
A similar incident occurred in the law school. Hence, Biden was required to repeat a course for reasons of plagiarism from a Fordham Law Review article with completely inadequate citations.
However, after redoing the course and passing with high marks, the incident was rather reviewed and concluded that he had violated no rules at all.
Mr. Biden had also made several false allegations about his academics and military status. Yes, he did. That if those were true, his profile will perhaps be way too different.
Biden claimed that in his early life he had earned 3 degrees in college,
that he had marched in the civil rights movement,
and that he graduated in the top half of his class.
I don't think he's the only one when it comes to that. Seriously. I remember telling my parents I was number 1 twice when in fact I was number 11 in a class of 12 students.
With all these false and exaggerated claims about his early life, on September 23, 1987, Biden consequently withdrew from the race, saying that his candidacy had been overrun by the exaggerated shadow of his past mistakes. Joe Biden and allegations of inappropriate physical contact.
For several times, Biden has been exposed to many accusations of inappropriate non-sexual contact, such as embracing, kissing, gripping, and even sexual assaults.
For example, in March of 2019, Lucy Flores, an American lawyer and former politician, made an allegation that Biden had touched her without her permission at a 2014 campaign rally in Las Vegas.
She later added on by saying that Biden walked up behind her, kissed the back of her head, and even smelled her hair, claiming that Biden's attitude towards her was a result of a special intimacy for close romantic partners.
Just after 2 days, another incident of the same nature had emerged.
Amy Lopez, a former congressional aide to Jim Himes, alleged that Biden touched her in a non-sexual but inappropriate way by holding her head to rub noses with her at a political fundraiser in Greenwich in 2009.
And also, just around April 2019, Tara Reid, a former Biden staffer, also came forward with a similar allegation of Biden's inappropriate conduct.
She said that on several occasions she had felt uneasy when Biden touched her on the shoulder and her neck during her employment in his Senate office in 1993.
And thereafter, Reid accused Biden of the 1993 sexual assault, but Biden and his campaign vehemently denied the allegation.
But in response to many other accusations against his great sense of inappropriate physical touch of women,
Biden tried to substantiate his astonishing behavior in a short video saying,
"I've always tried to make a human connection. That's my responsibility, I think. It's the way I've always been. It's the way I try to show I care about them and listening. I worked my whole life to empower women to prevent abuse. So the idea that I can't adjust to the fact that personal space is important, more important than it's ever been, is just not thinkable."
Biden then expressed his words of apologies, which he said, "The boundaries of protecting personal space have been reset. I get it. I hear what they're saying, and I understand it. I'll be much more mindful of people's personal space. That's my responsibility, and I'll meet it."
But the strangest things about all this Biden's response is that a few days after being accused of his inappropriate physical contact, he suddenly went on to say on an interview that he was not sorry for anything he had ever done, which ended up generating a lot of critics to accuse him of sending a mixed message.
Joe Biden's defects and health conditions.
Everyone has their defects and health conditions, of course. Some are more severe than the others, and others are just interesting to know about.
Having said that, did you know that Biden has a stutter which has improved since his early 20s?
According to him, his disability might have shown a lot of improvements by reciting poetry in front of a mirror.
But his improvement might have just been a blessing in disguise, because based on certain allegations, his performance during the 2020 Democratic Party presidential debates was affected by his stuttering condition.
Did you also know that Biden was asthmatic, and due to asthma, he was classified as unavailable for military service while he was in school in Dawaba in 1969?
But the story of Biden's health conditions does not end there. Did you also know that in the year of 1988 February, Biden underwent a surgery to correct a leaking intracranial berry aneurysm after several episodes of increasingly severe neck pain?
But for his own misfortune, during his recovery, he suffered a pulmonary embolism, which instead of speedy recovery,
his condition was rather aggravated, leading to a second aneurysm surgery.
And the recovery of his second brain surgery ended up keeping him away from the Senate for 7 months.
Biden's emotional life plays one of the saddest roles in his entire movie because of the oscillating graphic movement it has, from happiness to sadness,
from sadness to some sort of equilibrium,
from equilibrium to saddest,
and from saddest to where he is now.
Joe Biden's marriage or family.
To begin, Joe Biden married twice.
In other words, he had 2 wives, namely Nelia Hunter Biden and the current First Lady Jill Tracy Jacobs Biden.
Biden married Nelia Hunter on August 27, 1966. However, their marriage was subjected to doctrinal compromisation, as Nelia didn't just have to accept a new doctrine in her life, but also convince her parents of her getting married to a Roman Catholic, which was Biden in this case.
Thus, the ceremony was held in a Catholic church in Skaneateles in New York.
Wow, this is what Shakespeare would have called marriage of true minds, right?
Love is perfect and unchanging. It does not admit impediments, and it does not change when it finds changes in the law of war.
Joe and Hunter Biden had 3 children, namely Joseph Robinette Bo Biden III, Robert Hunter Biden, and Naomi Christina Amy Biden.
Remember that earlier on this video, we mentioned that Biden won the election for the US Senator in 1972, and that, with no shred of doubt, was worthy of a huge celebration.
But unfortunately, that celebration was rather preparation of a lifelong nightmare.
Just a few weeks after the election, Biden's wife and his daughter Naomi, who was just 1 year old, were both killed in a car accident while making shops for Christmas in Hoxton in Delaware.
Only Bao and Hunter survived the accident, though Bao with a broken leg and other wounds, and Hunter suffered a minor skull fracture and other head injuries.
This traumatic tragedy almost led Biden to give up on his dreams, that he even considered resigning to look after his only 2 survived sons.
thanks to Senate Mike Misfield, who advised him not to, although Biden still had trouble focusing on work.
The accident had filled Biden with so much anger that he even began to develop religious doubt, to an extent of saying in one of his writings that God had played a horrible trick on him.
Did you know that each and every year, on the 18th of December, Joe Biden takes an off-day work in memory of his wife and his one-year-old daughter Naomi?
I'm really impressed, I have to confess, because this is a concrete example of a man who truly loves his family.
Yeah.
Because he's showing that his work cannot replace the unfailing love that he had towards them.
Yeah, you're right. But unfortunately, that was far from never bearing a son again. Just 43 years after Biden's first wife and his daughter Naomi passed away, Beau Biden, Biden's first son in this case, died of brain cancer in 2015.
But having to lose a wife and a daughter did not stop Biden from getting married for the second time.
For the sake of his life purpose, emotional rejuvenation, and interest in politics, Biden meets Julie Tracy Jacobs, who is set to become the First Lady of the United States after the presidential inauguration in January 2021.
Both Biden and Jill met on a blind date in 1975, and 2 years later, Biden marries Jill on June 17, 1977 at the United Nations Chapel in New York.
Together, they have one daughter, Ashley Biden, an American social worker, activist, philanthropist, and fashion designer. Ash, man, that's too much for her plate. Yo, she must be earning some real cash, you know?
Yeah, driving some Lambos, Porsches, and boogers around me.
You know what I'm saying? Right, let's be serious now. All right. Being president is usually associated to richness, but if that's Biden's case, then the media would have perhaps missed one or two informations.
Joe Biden's financial status.
Both Biden and Jill are millionaires with a net worth valued at $9 million US.
But that, according to the Forbes estimates.
However, according to Biden, he has always been a middle-class Joe.
Okay, let me just quickly explain something to you guys. Just like my big brother here said, Joe Biden was not born millionaire, unlike many politicians. Have you ever heard of that saying, the grace to be born does not always bring us a chance to live? Exactly. And this is completely evident in Joe Biden's childhood when his father was initially wealthy. However, after World War II, he suffered financial crisis just around the time Biden was born.
He was born around the time the family was almost close to poverty. And for a couple of years, Biden's father's financial standings led them to live with Biden's maternal grandparents.
Although the story is sad, the fact is that Biden's father could not find a steady work to support his family due to the falling into economic decline of Scranton during the 1950s.
Beginning in 1953, the family lived in an apartment in Claremont in Delaware when Joe Biden was only 10 years old. Then the family moved to a house in Wilmington, also located in Delaware.
Biden's father later became a successful used car salesman, maintaining the family in a middle-class lifestyle. And perhaps that's the main reason why, for many decades, Joe Biden has considered himself a middle-class person.
Biden and Jill's fortune includes 2 homes in Delaware valued at $4 million US combined, cash and investments worth another $4 million US, and a federal pension that's worth $1 million.
Although historians will live for the present and for the future.
Today, Joe Biden is the 46th elected president of the United States, succeeding Donald Trump, the first sitting president to ever lose re-election since George Bush in 1992.
Biden is also expected to become the oldest president ever in the history of the United States of America, as well as the first president whose home state is Delaware, and the second Catholic president after John F. Kennedy.
His inauguration as the US president is to be held at noon on the 20th of January 2021.
Well, after 2 trials to take office, allegation and expectatives,
after the truth about the past and the status of the present,
do you think Joe Biden deserves the future as the President of the United States of America?
So let us know in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on
They will see us on our next video.
Never mind. Thank you so much for watching the video, and stay in peace before the peace leaves you into pieces. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, after 2 trials to take office, allegation and
Biden and Jill's fortune includes 2 homes in Delaware valued at $4 million.
This traumatic tragedy almost led Biden to give up on his dreams, that he even began resigning. Come on. This traumatic tragedy.
Yeah.
This traumatic tragedy. This traumatic tragedy. Tragedy.
Vai. 1, 2, 3.
This traumatic tragedy almost led Biden to give up on his dreams, that he even began. This traumatic tragedy almost led Biden to give up on his dreams, that he.
Wait, sai, pá.
Deixa eu ver.